And you've seen this happen before, like, or just look at it, like they don't want to sign a prenup. Meant to. You've seen that the Tinder swindler, what he's done and stuff. So you got to be careful, right, with any kind of relationship, especially if you're introducing them into your home. So I would, in order to protect yourself the most, sign something. Because I know it's not romantic, guys. And at the end of the day, business is business. If you have kids, you want to leave them. Business is business. Like you have to talk with legal advice before the person moves in, because again, if they move in there and there's nothing signed on it, they're entitled to some of your equity of your home.
Hello. Welcome back to the DC Talks podcast. I'm your gracious host, Owen Osinde, back with DC in the building to talk about a very interesting topic in real estate. People have big dreams of getting real estate. They come in, they join together. Either you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, man and wife. But what happens if you break up? What happens if you divorce? We're here to talk about that today. And we have the best guy in the building to talk about it because he sees it all the time. And we want to get all the tips of how you can avoid this, how to best set up your relationship in case you do end up divorcing or breaking up. Who keeps the property? How do you exchange the payments, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get into it, DC, how you doing?
Why was so far away this time?
I think you moved back a little bit.
Hey, want to move closer?
Sorry. Isaac, should I move closer?
No, you're good. Okay. Am I better there? Yeah. All right.
Okay. So DC, let's get straight into it. How often do you see divorces happening? And
since COVID, a lot more often. Yeah. It's unfortunately we get a phone call pretty periodically about a split, and where split happens. And it's funny because I'm pretty good at being impartial, and unfortunately I've had to do with a number of divorces, in which I've had to sell the matrimonial home and get each partner into their own home or rental or in those situations. So it's better if you are amicable, obviously, and then you can pick one realtor. Everyone's kind of on the same page. I've had situations where I've almost had to represent ones where there was almost one was representing the one party, and another realtor was representing the other party. You can do that as long as the realtors get along and they're both basically in sync with what, if you're selling a property, what the value is worth and what they should accept, the conditions, etc. But it's a little bit easier when it's with one agent. And somebody you both trust. You might, I wouldn't say the first divorce I've ever dealt with, but one of the divorces I went through with working was, I didn't know them personally, so that helped, right? Yeah. So if you have somebody who's pretty much impartial that they can represent, because there's no way of, having any favoritism to either side, that goes a long way. But I think in the general question, how do you protect yourself, is a very valid question. It's like, when you are approaching to purchase a property, well, what are the parameters that are in there, right? Like, so whether are you who's putting in the most of the money, right? Like that matters, right? And you have to discuss, if something happens to our relationship, how do we dissolve this? I think having the conversation,
it's like a business relationship.
It's a business relationship, right? It is what it is, especially if you're not married. If you're married, I get it. Everything gets split pretty much 50-50 in your own, but there's also two different ways when you're purchasing a property, how the property is held, right? And how the law recognizes a property. There's one, it's called tenants in common, and the other one is joint tenancy, right? So tenants in common is what, if you're not married, which you probably should be doing, right? So tenants in common is it's like a partnership, right? So if you're bringing 50% of the money down, you realize 50% of the property. 50% of the property is yours from beginning to when you dispose of the property. Taxes, everything is 50%. If you should happen to pass away, well, that 50% doesn't become automatically part of the other owner. No, it stays within some, we're part of your will. So for example, if me and you bought a property, we're not husband and wife. If I pass away, well, it gets passed to I would probably put in my will that my wife and family get it, right? That kind of situation. So you can also do that with, in a marriage as well. If you don't want, if your partner, if you're worried about that can happen. Or if you want to absorb it as well, then you would just pay taxes on my 50% is what happens, right? So that's called tenants in common. And that comes into, if, say you're purchasing a property and you're putting 95% down, and who's covering the cost? Well, it's like, well, why should the other person realize 50% of it? You can set up with tenants in common what percentage the other party owns, each party owns, right?
Do you feel like it's hard to bring that conversation up to a partner, because you're coming into a relationship, you're full of love, you're full of a lot of aspirations to build a family and everything, you don't really foresee these things. So it's kind of like bringing up signing a prenup. It's such a touchy subject.
Yeah, of course. But you know what? And then you'd have the conversation and say, okay, what happened? Like most people will get into a relationship and will and they don't do, they'll do the other thing. They'll be joint tenancy. Joint tenancy is survivorship, right? So in case that situation where when you own a property, each party owns 100% of the property. So there is survivorship. So if a husband and wife both own a joint tenancy, one passes away, the other one just automatically absorbs it. It just becomes under one name, right? You don't have to pay any probate, which is taxes on, for transfer of property. It just becomes there. So a lot of people will do that, right? And then that becomes a little bit hairy if you get divorced, right? Because now you have to just determine what happens, right? But of course it's a hard conversation. But before you get married or before you buy a house, you need to have hard conversations. You're either gonna have a hard conversation now or at the point of if something happens and you dissolve the marriage.
Yeah.
These conversations need to happen. Who's putting the money? So sometimes I would say with my wife, when Natalie and I got married, I owned the $6, which we still own. And I remember the lawyer coming up to me. He's like, "You're giving her half the percent of the house?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "What if you guys get divorced?" I'm like, "Then she gets half of it." Right. Like that was our conversation. Like I brought her in. We also needed her to be on title. So we were able to access a lot of the equity. So without her, we couldn't buy another house. So it was kind of moot. So we kind of talked about it. I'm like, yeah, like she's in, but we're buying other properties with it as well. So we're using our equity. But it was a quick conversation. It didn't need to be like a whole drawn out conversation. But if all of a sudden if your guys are living together and like you're okay, and like, okay, if you say, well, should we buy a house? I'm like, just say, well, what does that kind of look like? How does that look? What's the deposit going to be like? Who's going to come up with the deposit? Right? Well, who's going to make the payments? So if I'm doing the deposit and then I'm making all the payments, then like you understand
the mortgage.
So you have those conversations, right? Like with the mortgage, if you can't afford this, well, if you may be able to afford this later on, like what happens in this situation?
Yeah.
So if you can't have that conversation, why are you buying a house, right? Like if you can't know that kind of stuff, like, and again, like, I'll be honest, like our house too, it's skewed, obviously, like, with I make all the payments and stuff too, but I'm okay. We're joint tenancy. It is what it is. We're married for 16, maybe 17 years this year. It is, knock on wood, everything goes well, right? But we have those conversations all the time. She'll ask, like now she is, my wife asked me like, okay, she wants to put doors in, like these glass doors in our house, and it's going to be like $5-6 grand. I'm like, can we afford it this month? And I'm like, well, we just paid for 2 trips to go to, one to Europe, one from this. I'm like, let's see what our budget's going to be like. It's a conversation. We talk about money. We don't talk about it's taboo. You've seen those couples that have taboo conversations about money. Those are ones destined to break apart. And then I have to go in and sweep up the mess. And then no one's going to be happy in a divorce situation. Nobody's happy, right? I'm dealing with one with my buddy now. Like we've been on the market for almost a year now. And it's like the market hasn't been great for it, but it's both sides are kind of fighting, well, can we drop the price to here? Well, no, I need to get this amount out. Like if I don't get this, I don't get that. It's an awkward situation. It's very awkward. So I find the people that are constantly fighting, they've been fighting beforehand because they didn't have these hard conversations.
Yeah.
You want to save your marriage? You want to save your house? Talk before you buy anything or live together.
You could be able to like have these conversations. Everything can be honky-dory in the beginning, but after divorce, emotions take over. A lot of people are feeling hurt, might be infidelity, and they're like, screw whatever we agreed upon. I want 100%. I want you did this to me. There's a lot of these thoughts that come into play. Have you ever seen that take precedence over what's been agreed upon? So maybe share a little bit more.
Yeah, like even though we have like our friends of ours that are going through it right now, and the wife who's the one who is unfaithful. She won't split the house. She won't do that. And she's going after the husband and say like, well, the money you made, we split 50-50, but all the money you put towards my business is mine. He's like, no, we were 50-50 on this too, right? And of course it's affecting affordability of the home. Like they didn't sell the home, right? But because she's not selling the home, then she's like, she's going after him for other money, right? So of course it gets vindictive. And she was the one that did all the cheating.
Exactly. He's living his life. He was being
faithful.
He's doing his thing.
So what happens in that kind of situation, any kind of money you want, if you're vindictive like that and when you're trying to fight the paper, the only people that get rich are the lawyers.
Because they're just dragging it out.
Just drag it out.
Billing those hours.
Yeah. And if you don't time it right, you can also, if you go to sell your house and like if you don't time it right, you'll lose a lot of money in the house too because you might have missed the market. Right?
Yeah.
So listen, guys, it's worth having the initial conversation and constant having the conversations. But that's also part of marriage, right? Like I think the most reasons why, even when there's infidelity, I think a lot of the times is because of lack of communication, right? The lack of feelings towards each other. So yeah, like unfortunately, what happened during COVID, we're seeing now. We're seeing a lot of the effects of COVID. A lot of people got divorced during COVID, and we're still seeing a lot more people now haven't recovered from COVID. In the sense, not the actual ailment. It was like what happened in the household. Like the relationship got tarnished.
It got exposed more so.
Exposed. That's right. They spend more time they expect to spend with their spouse. Or you've heard about like people having other families in other parts of the house and they got exposed. It's like, so.
Everything was kind of built on a house of cards. I think COVID kind of showed that.
It's so funny how that showed. I think COVID was like, so what I always tell people is like, if there's only a couple of things that ruin relationships, and it's funny, like, and one is a renovations of a house, another one's having a baby. Because I'm like, well, why does that? Because it exposes your relationship. It magnifies your relationship, right? If you ever want to renovate a house or build a house, make sure your relationship with your partner is strong. Because you're going to have to make so many stupid decisions that you're just going to fight. And if you're constantly fighting, we bought our house on Edgecroft back in 2011 because the couple, and you can see when they got divorced and something, like they were fighting about everything. And you can see a lot of it had to be about money, about decisions. First of all, your money, every budget you have on a renovation is going to go 10 to 20% above. That's almost guaranteed. I've seen people actually only get 3%, but I've seen people blow their budget crazy. And that obviously puts a strain in a relationship, right? So that's one thing to be careful about. And so if you have to make all these stupid, I call them stupid decisions, but they are, right? Do you want this outlet or do you want this outlet? How high do you want the outlets? Like how many do you want?
Do you want a chandelier?
Where do you want your lights? What kind of lights do you want? Do you want pot lights in here? Do you want hanging ones over here? Well, how many pendant lights would you like over the island? Do you want 3? Do you want 4? What kind of hood fan do you want? Do you want your hood fan suspended? Do you want your hood fan ingrained? Do you want a fireplace? Gas? Wood? So it seems like stupid little things is like your baseboard. Do you want 9-inch or do you want 8-inch? Like, does it matter? Or do you want a beveled side? Do you want other? And it sounds small, but think about all the decisions you have to make, right? Unless you had a concrete conversation. And for most of the time with me and my wife, it'd be like, well, we've done a number of renovations. It was just like, I don't know, whatever she wants. Like at this point,
she's the home designer.
Like we designed here, like both her and we designed most of this. And I thought we were pretty easy. We kind of had an idea that we stuck with their idea in mind. We kind of went with it, but we had to do a number of those. When we did our first renovation, funnily, we didn't fight. We were actually struggling for money, but we've known each other for so long at that point. But you see how it magnifies. Second thing is a baby.
I was going to ask you about if you get divorced, whoever keeps custody, do they keep the house and the other couple?
So there's a new thing going on now, which I forget what they call it. It's called nesting or something. I think it's called that. Have you heard about it? So, and it's one of the situations where the kids stay in the house and the parents are the ones that move in and out per week. So 1 week, it's the husband that lives in the house and the vet and then he leaves and then the wife goes in the next week.
How's this sustainable?
Well, because what happens is like the husband or the wife have another place to live.
Like a little condo?
Yeah.
So they have a condo, but then for the sake of the kids, they keep.
So the kids stay in the same school. They're not bouncing from a different house to different house. They're like, and it's like structured, right? Yeah. So the husband or wife, they can live wherever they want for a week and stuff too. They can buy a house. Like, so if you're living in Toronto, you can have a house in Uxbridge or, Brampton or wherever you want. You can go all the way up to Niagara Falls if you want to, because as long as you travel back, depending on your work, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one day, and then basically your job is for the week just to cook for them, clean them, take them to their sporting events or the recitals or all that kind of stuff too, and then you switch. So it's like co-parenting without having a spouse.
Sounds like a lot of stress.
It sounds like a nightmare. It's what it sounds like. So we have a situation possibly now where I might have to represent. I'm representing a couple that are splitting, and I know them well. And they're like, so you always just wonder, like, I'm like, I'm trying to be as partial. I'm partial. I'm sorry. I'm impartial because I know them. I've known them at the same time, but emotions get involved on both sides. And I'm just like, you have to sit between them. Like, guys, I'm like, I'm Switzerland. I don't like, I have no skin in the game in this way, one way or the other. I'm like, I'm here to give you advice. And I told them now at this point, like, I wouldn't sell your home. Like they have a high profile, good, expensive home, and you're not getting those prices right now. So you have to figure out another shit. Either stay together for another year and would you sell it, or figure it out. Like the kids, they also have kids. I said either do that or figure out an alternative solution. Either buy one of each other, buys each other out, or do something else. But do not sell
this house. You're
a
going to
$4 million home in this market. It's just not going to go.
Yeah. And how do people function in that situation? Because if you're telling them not to sell and they're staying in the house together, they're pretty much roommates. And how often do you see this?
So what's happening now, and I've seen this a lot, and actually we used to do this as Italians, so it's funny. They would never get divorced, but they would live on separate floors. Italians were hilarious back in the day because the whole perception was
to keep the family together.
No, it was, they didn't care, but the family knew what was going on the inside.
Yeah.
They were more worried what everybody else thought.
Yeah,
the optics. Yeah. Like, what does everybody else think? And it's like, what do you mean you live in the same house? I'm like, yeah, well, like, he lives on the top floor, I live on the middle floor, and we, like, what happens to each other? We pass each other, we say hi, and then that's it.
And like, they share the bills, everything. Like,
well, they're still married.
Yeah,
they're still on title, but they're not. So they're separated.
So you know what that brings up? That means that, like, we're often seeing so many relationships, but we don't really know, like, the intricacies of it.
Yeah.
Like, they look like they're happy and in love and everything, but when they go back home, they're not even in a relationship. They're just, as I said, roommates. They're sharing a dwelling spot.
Yeah.
So, and it's crazy how much finances make an impact on that, because if you divorce me, we're both losing. So we might as well just thug it out and find different accommodations for a different relationship. Yeah. How often do you see that? Like, in
that they're amicable about it?
They're not really divorcing, but they're staying together because there is a lot to lose if we do end up divorcing.
It happens all the time. Like, I think a lot of times that people don't even realize that their relationship is dead. What also happens is, like, so the second thing was, like we say about kids, magnifies your relationship, right? So, like, you can see how selfish somebody is. The other part is when you become an empty nester. So let's back up a little bit. You and your wife are together, like, all of a sudden you have a kid, right? And now all of a sudden it's like, well, who's gonna change the diapers? Who's gonna, like, take the kid out? Like, who's gonna sacrifice their job for this? Like, it always becomes a struggle, and that really magnifies your relationship. Also magnifies the size of the house that you're at. Like, I always tell you realtors, it's like, stay close to your newlyweds and make sure you contact them a lot, especially if they're living in a condo, because you can almost time it.
There's nowhere to run in a condo. Like,
as soon as you have a baby, either two things are going to happen, and you're living in a condo. Either they're going to get divorced, right? Which doesn't happen as often. The second thing is they're going to want a bigger spot. So think about it. If you have a baby in your house and you're living in a condo and you're on the 17th floor, well, say Natalie and I were living in that, and I was working.
Yeah.
And she's downstairs. She's got Mila in her stroller. There's only so much bags you can put in a stroller if you went shopping. Like, so we say, like, I'm earning the money. Like, you have to stay home, take care of the kid in the house. Like, okay. And that's just usually, we're doing a traditional way. They say in a traditional way. Until you have Matt leave, and then we will split the duties. But if you're home all the time, it makes sense. Okay. So she goes downstairs. We never lived in a condo. I'm just giving a hypothetical. You only fit so many grocery bags in a bag. Say if you did a big shop, right? So you got to go up and down the grocery, and you're not going to bring another stroller with you because you have Mila with you. And you have to bring her with you. You can't just leave her alone if she's like 6 months old. So you're not going to put her up in the condo by yourself. So you got to bring her back down. Get another load. You have to. How many loads you going up and down? It gets old really, really quick. Or you do really short trips, but that means you have to go to the grocery store a lot because you always have a stroller with you. So I always say to my young agents, it's like, look at your newlyweds.
Keep a pulse on them.
Yeah, keep a pulse, because especially if they have a baby, chances are more than 90% of the time they're going to want a bigger house. Yeah, that's that. Unless they have this huge room. I mean, like, it's not even the size of the condo. It's more of the freaking up and down from the elevators.
Yeah, that could be tedious.
It can be tedious. And throwing the garbage out. Imagine you have dirty diapers that's piling up and you can't go because you're like, when you're a first-time parent, and Elise will know this too, like, you're scared of your first kid. It's like you almost have the white gloves on. You're scared. You don't leave them anywhere. You don't do them like. The second one, no one gives a shit. By the time I was the third kid, I was raising myself. I was cooking them, you know what I mean? Like, but it's true. The first one, it's like everyone's like, they're in bubble wrap, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're talking. We're talking about first-time parents. So yeah, the second thing is, well, divorces happen a lot, and here's where it comes to communication with your spouse. Talk about finances. Talk about this, and this I've always said many times. Don't forget your wife And don't forget your wife to take her on dates, take her out, talk with your wife. Because when the kids are out of the house and you no longer have to take them to ballet or to hockey or, to the recitals and all that fun stuff, you're staring across the table at your wife and I'm like, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you in 30 years or 20 years since our kids have been around. Like, who are you? Mm-hmm. And that happens. A lot of people don't even know who their spouse is.
They grow apart.
They grew apart. They're different people.
Yeah. And people don't
and
factor that.
And some people they don't like the person that they're with anymore because it's like, you have different interests. You have different everything. I'm like, you're not the person I married. Duh. Yeah. We all change.
Yeah. And that's the scary thing about marriage is like people, as you said, grow as themselves. The other partner grows. And what do you do in that situation? Like when someone because you can grow with them, but you can drift apart naturally.
Yeah.
So there's like a 50-50 chance that the person you married at like 25 isn't the same person at like
I'd hope not.
48.
Well, you've known me. How long have you known me for? 3 years now?
3 years, yeah.
Am I the same person 3 years ago as I am today?
You've grown a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I think we all should. Mm-hmm. So
I think the values have to stay the same. Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So we struggle a little bit with that with Natalie because it's like when it comes to like the religion aspect, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we argue, but we have a good common ground. Like we're both Christian.
It's a healthy discourse.
It's a healthy, but it's like she pushes back. When people say, are you as into like Christianity as much as Dave is? And she's like, no, like he's like, so I make us sit down and pray and read the Bible with the family. Like I read every morning with Chris and my mom. And, but every Saturday is still the Sabbath day. We keep it and make the kids read with us. Mm-hmm. And that's my job as the traditional way. The father of the household also like as the religious aspects, it gives like, that's part of it. Like the teaching should come from the home, not from the school. Right. So I try to uphold that, and Natalie acknowledges that, but she goes, no, sometimes I read the Bible, I don't get into it. I'm like, good thing I do, right? So just shut up and listen. I don't need that, but like, just like, let's be a united front, especially in front of the kids. I know the kids, they don't love it right now that they have to come on Saturdays for 20 minutes and read the Bible. It's like, but I should remind them, and well, it's better than we had to go to when we used to go to church, and have to do all this ritual things, which I didn't believe in, and we still had to do it just to be there. Mm-hmm. And that comes to like, so it's different, right? So you can have discourse in your marriage of topics, but the core needs to be the same.
Yeah. I want to get into remarrying. So let's say you keep the house and you have kids. The new husband comes in and now he wants to be part of the title because he's contributing to the house, but the house also has, you want to leave it to your kids as like maybe an inheritance or something like that.
That's what we will. Yeah.
Talk more about that and how people.
So first off, if your spouse or your partner is living in your home, in order for you to sell the house, you have to have spousal consent. Mm-hmm. So even if they're not on title, they become like, especially if they live in the house for I think it's over 6 months it was before, they actually are entitled to partial of your the proceeds you make, even if they're not on title. Mm-hmm. So that's a misnomer that people don't understand is that, oh, she's not on title, so she's not, I want to sell the house, she's going to get nothing. Says who? That's not true, right? Did she live in the house? Can she prove she lived in the house? And, like, were you there? Do pictures stuff too? She's lived in the house for 12 years. Like, I hate to tell you, you're going to have to split with that 50-50. So, in case something happens in the divorce, which is also happening with one of my clients right now. It's exactly what happened. He was on title, bought it before they even met her. Mm-hmm. And now they're selling and they have to split. It is what it is, right? Yeah. It's like, you have to understand that. But I guess there is some things in the will. I guess you'd have to talk with your lawyer. So like the lawyer would probably know more about that, how to, but I've seen before when you're purchasing a property and then you have it in a corporation name. And then, then there's, certain people in the corporation. So I guess there could be that could also work way through. But if it's the spouse's matrimonial, or if it's their own home as well, they're living in there.
Yeah.
They are entitled to some compensation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so tricky because let's say you come into the relationship, you bring your own assets into it, and then you get divorced. Let's say you own like 5 other properties, and then you're divorcing, and the girl wasn't a part of that.
Yeah.
And then you get a huge financial hit, and now you're trying to get back in the market again. How do you recover? How do you bounce back from that? And It's
you have to be smart. Unfortunately, in this day and age too, like, and no, I'm not saying that people are gold diggers and stuff too, like that. For people
are
say that,
strategic,
but people are strategic when it comes to it. Yeah, and you've seen this happen before, like, or just look at it like they don't want to sign a prenup. Meant to. You've seen that the Tinder swindler, what he's done and stuff. Yeah, so you got to be careful, right, with any kind of relationship, especially if you're introducing them into your home. So I would, in order to protect yourself the most, sign something. Because I know it's not romantic, guys. And at the end of the day, business is business. If you have kids, you want to leave them. Business is business. Like you have to then talk with the legal advice before the person moves in. Because again, if they move in there and there's nothing signed on it, they're entitled to some of your equity of your home.
So love is unconditional.
Yeah.
Love has its limits.
Listen, we want to be practical here. I don't want to give advice of like, don't worry about it. Yeah, let 15 people come move in your house. Yeah, don't worry about divorce. You'll come on the long end. Listen, divorce is. I keep saying this. People don't get rich out of divorce. The lawyers do. They're the ones that make most of the money out of the divorce. But if somebody's coming in with nothing and they could still land some good money. Was it a comedian? Was it Bill Burr talking about? I think it might be Bill Burr when he was talking about he hates divorces, and he's like, look at Tiger Woods' wife. She gets paid $250 million and plus another two, like whatever it was, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. He goes, for what? like to keep her lifestyle. Like it is what it is. It's like, and that's what you have to pay. You have to pay
$250K a month. Is he said 250?
No, I think she got paid $250 million and as a settlement, and then also for I don't remember, but $100K. It was part of this. It was part of the stand up. It was a lot of money she was getting paid. Yeah,
she's like set for life.
He makes
like a billionaire. Yeah. He's set for life.
He still had to give away half of his empire, and he's still set for life.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, I even last point here. Even like NBA star Anthony Edwards. This kind of doesn't have to do with like real estate, but he got a girl pregnant. She's like, I think approaching her early 40s. And she was strategic about it. She wanted to like trap him and get his money. So she moved to California because they have a lot more lenient laws for child custody. Yeah. And he knows Anthony Edwards is like a top earner in the NBA. He makes like $250 million. That's how big his contract is. So they looked at her earnings and she earns good money because like she has like her little businesses and everything. The judge saw what she was trying to do and she said, I'm not allowing you to use the California laws to actually extort Anthony Edwards with money. So the most Anthony Edwards has to pay is like $5K a month for 18 years. The smart thing Anthony Edwards is doing now is she's like, you know what? I'll pay the lump sum of the entire 18 years, which I think is going to be 1.8 million. And to him, that's like, okay, my next two contracts are going to be worth like close to 300 million because of the TV money coming in. So he's just like, I don't want to deal with this. You kind of finessed me. Here is 1 point something million. Get out of my life. But the thing is, they know she's going to burn through that money in the next 4 years and she can't come back and ask him for more.
Yeah.
So he's taking care of like the present value of the money right now because she knows as expenses rise and everything goes, that 1.8 could be like doubled to whatever.
Well, I would also, if I was in your situation, take the money now. If you're strategic, you earn money now. You're better off take money now, and you're able to invest it even on interest alone. It's worth more than the time value of money. It was worth more now than will be in the future.
A lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
In someone doing a lump sum payment.
That's
get rid of the headache.
Well, that we'll get into other things. How maybe they shouldn't be. Anyway, we'll sleeping on wedlock and all that fun stuff. Imagine that's not even the bad one. Like, was it? Remember, Sean Kemp had like what 8 kids with 6 girls, baby. Like, anyway, it's insane. It's insane. Like, listen, at the end of the day, boys, it's like just keep your morals in check. I don't know. I wasn't a pro athlete, but I don't know why NBA stars feel like they need to impregnate as many people women as they possibly can.
I mean, think about it. Like, you have the world is your oyster. Like, you go from living in middle America, you're an NBA star, you get to college, you're getting like $300,000 a week in your bank account. And, you're the guy. Yeah. So people get tempted by the devil.
Who was it? Was it Charles Barkley? I forget who told him. He was buying all these cars. And he's like, Charles, how many cars can you drive at once? One. He goes, sell all your cars. He goes, this money's going to last you your whole life. And that's the problem with like these NBA stars. They don't look, well, I'm not saying, not even that. I don't even say it. I would say most athletes, like a lot of athletes, don't always look in the future. The thing about hockey players is they don't make a lot of money compared to what everybody else is paying, right? So it's like, you've seen some go broke and stuff too, but
they live like regular lives.
They live like they're not overly, flamboyant with their money, and so they're not going to get, grills and stuff like that too. But it's funny sometimes you see these like Allen Iverson, how fast he went babankrupt after he was done. Like how fast. It was like overnight. He was like, oh, it's like as if he never earned any money in his whole life.
The thing is, Reebok, what they did is they gave him like I don't know if it's an annuity, but he signed like a lifetime deal. Like by the time he turns like 56, there's like a $30 million trust fund available for him. So even though he went broke, he can only access that money later on in life, and like which is coming up pretty soon in 2026. Wow. He's gonna have access to 30 million.
Maybe he'll learn his lesson.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. If you have any pressing questions about divorce, real estate, how to function with that, you know who to go to. And have a great week ahead. And we'll talk to you next week for our brand new episode. Peace out.